This is Jason Hager from Years of Fire, and you are watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 210 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Jason Hager from Years of Fire. Best know him as former guitarist for Chimaira. So, how are you doing today, Jason?
Good man, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. Just
Thanks for having me.
yeah, anytime, man. Just got home from work not so long ago, had a quick dinner, and here I am, ready to talk with you.
Awesome. Yeah, today was actually my one day off. I have a pretty weird schedule. Aside from music, doing tattooing, it's not a normal 9 to 5 job. So it's like you go in whenever someone
Yeah,
wants it on. So I actually had a day off.
hell
So
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So kind of like the format is I want to do like a rundown of your discography and talk about your musical history. So kind of growing up in Ohio, what were the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to start playing guitar?
um I'd probably say I I first moved to Cleveland when I was 5. I was born in West Virginia, lived there till
Oh,
I was 5, lived there down there with my dad. Then I moved up here with my mom. And then I don't remember how, but like I was introduced to Kiss, and it's just the overwhelming spectacle of it all. It was just like amazing to me, and it's just I was obsessed everything Kiss, and so that's pretty much all I listened to as a kid, and I was always into drawing and stuff like that. And going to a Catholic school, I draw pictures of like the members of Kiss, and they called my mom in for a meeting, saying that I'm drawing pictures of demons and shit, and they're worried that I was or could be a serial killer. And then my mom looked at the pictures. She's like, "Oh, they're just a rock band, something to worry about." And they're like, "Well, maybe he shouldn't be listening to this kind of stuff." And my mom's like, "Well, maybe you shouldn't be teaching me how to parent my kid." So
Dude,
she's always been she's always been really open about, you know, me being able to like express myself artistically and just who I am as a person. She never censored stuff that I listened to, watched, any of that. As long as like, if she saw it was like starting to like screw with my head, she'd be like, "Yeah, maybe you shouldn't be into that." But so you know, 6 years old watching things like The Exorcist and stuff like that. She didn't really care. So, but musically, like it started out with stuff like that, and then as I got like a little bit older, more into like middle school and stuff like that, I started getting more into like skateboarding and punk rock and lots of hair metal stuff. It was the 80s, so it's and I mean, and to this day, I mean, I stand firm when I say, I mean, there's a lot of guitar players and hair metal bands that are just like so underrated because it just their talent just is not like, I don't think the style of music definitely necessarily showcases just how talented some of those guys really are. But
exactly.
when you and then started getting a little, the older I got, the more like in middle school, getting a little bit older, started getting into bands like Metallica and Megadeth, stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, my sleeveless jean jacket, which on my 8th grade field trip to Washington D.C., I almost got sent home because I went into first place we stopped was the U.S. the mint where they mint all the money and stuff like that. Wearing my jean jacket, I got this big skull painted on the back of it, and the teacher was like, "If you don't take that off right now, you're getting sent home." So made me send it,
Oh,
and
damn.
then later, yeah, and then later on, like I had Megadeth, Rust, or P Cells, who's buying like like the big full back patches, which I still wish bands made,
Yeah.
regularly. I mean, I'm sure you can get them made. I just don't know where.
You have to like think there
But
should be like Etsy shops or something.
yeah, and so I had that, and it's just I didn't know how to sew, so I stapled the fucking thing to the back of my jacket, and like so, and
Wow.
then I would glue skateboarding stickers to the back of my jacket, and then from there, it was mostly like metal and punk rock and stuff like that. And then I started getting more into the like kind of like New York City hardcore scene, like bands like Judge, Youth of Today, Gorilla Biscuits, and just that real high energy, you know, just in your face, like you see these shows, it's just like kids just like piling on top of the stage, like trying to sing along and stuff like that. And actually, we'll take one step back real quick. I was in when I was in middle school and I was watching MTV, and it was like the very first time I saw the video for "We're Not Going to Take It" by Twisted Sister. And it's like the dad's yelling at the fucking kid,
Yeah,
which
I remember that.
which I could definitely relate to, just because me and my stepdad just not a good relationship, but we don't need to go into all of that.
Yeah.
But anyways, so and then all of a sudden the kid just fucking starts spinning around, turns into D Snyder, and it's like, oh my god, that's what I want to. That's what I want to be. I want to do that for my life. And so I started getting more into that, and then I think I was about 16, and I ordered my first like cheap generic guitar just out of just some crappy catalog, and then just pretty much completely self-taught. And then like I said, I was getting more into bands like the New York City hardcore bands like Judge and all of that stuff, just because one, they're heavy as hell. A lot of them had a really positive message, even if it was about negative subjects. Like it was, a way to like overcome. It's like you're not like these things don't define you. It's like miserable things can be happening to you, but you can turn it into a positive. You can come through it all. I mean, I definitely, I was never, straight edge or anything like that. Like I used to do when I was in my 20s, the whole self-medicating thing and all that stuff. But luckily, like right now, my shit, sorry about that.
Oh, good.
My own, my only vice right now is cigarettes. So, which is kids, if you're listening, do not start smoking, man. It's hard to quit. It's horrible for you. But anyways, that's my positive message for the day.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good PSA in an interview, folks.
yes, yes, and don't do drugs either, because I mean, it just you think you're or you think you're and you're trying to numb yourself, and it just ends up making it worse. But anyway, so and then I started when I was in high school. I would skip a lot of classes because our high school had a communications program with a radio station, and the communications teacher knew that I was skipping my classes just to go hang out there and stuff. And then I started getting more into band, like early in high school. I started getting more into bands, like it's like I'd heard Slayer, but like never really fully got into them.
Yeah.
So, I just start listening to all these records over and over again. And it's just like, oh my God, Slayer, and then Carcass. And it's like all the British, like a lot of the British, like death metal bands from like the late 80s, early 90s were always a huge influence on me. bands like Carcass, Bolt Thrower, uh, Fudge Tunnel, which I mean they weren't really very extreme, but they were still awesome. And then stuff like that, and say and as far as like the like the Florida death metal scene, it's like it was cool and all, but it's like I liked more of the British death metal stuff. I liked bands like Death and Obituary, and I mean I think Deicide's Once Upon a Cross is probably one of the best death metal records ever.
One of my favorites.
And, yeah, and then then I and then like I started jamming with some friends. Like I started a band with it was like in my early 20s. I started a band with Matt DeVries, who
Yeah.
most people know like is the one that ended up taking my spot in Chimaira when I had to quit.
Yeah.
And which is great because like he was like one of my best friends. Like because our big group of friends in our small town, it's like, dude, it was like the widest range of like just misfits. You had everything from like skaters, punk rock kids, metalheads, stoners, hippies, like non-rate like skinheads, but not the racist skinheads. And it just ranging anywhere from like 14 to like 21. Just everybody hanging out in this little town, and the town hated us all. But like me and Matt just kind of clicked, because we were both into a lot of the same bands, and we started a band together called Ascension.
Yeah.
Well, originally it was called Falling in Line, and we were both playing guitar, and me and him had like a falling out over just stupid stuff, like you know all like we're all dumb in our early 20s. It's like he had a girlfriend and none of us had, and he was spending so much time with her, and we're like, oh, blah 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 blah, just so it broke up. But we got back together, and then we ended up having to fire our drummer. And he, at the time, the band was called Falling in Line, and it was just it was like kind of like a metal influenced hardcore band. We were like more of a metal band but in the hardcore scene, and we even like straight out said we're metal. And when we fired him, he's like, well, I don't want you using the name because I came up with it. We're like, that's totally fine, because ultimately none of us really liked it anyways. And we already had a new name picked out, which the name of the band was Ascension.
Yeah.
So we got a new drummer, and we started playing, and we were playing a bunch of shows, and it was like, we're playing all these like DIY shows in the hardcore scene, and we're like, we're like saying how we're a metal band, and like and you got all the straight edge kids with the big X's on their hands, and like the Christian hardcore was a big thing then too, like in the early 90s. And so like I was neither Christian nor straight edge, so like I would draw and like, well, when we reformed, I switched over to bass. So I forgot to like say that's this,
Yeah.
instead of like trying to find a new bass player because our old bass player just wasn't into it. I'm like,
Yeah.
like
I'll
I'll
just slap
try
at a
it.
bass.
Yeah, it's like I'll try it, something different.
Yeah.
So
It was like 4 strings, no problem.
yep. But like, and it was weird because I didn't play bass like a normal bass player because I was like trying to, it's like I didn't want to like play it like a guitar, but I was also trying to compensate for the fact that we only had one guitar player. And like, it's weird because I've had, like some younger bass players say like, "Oh yeah, your bass playing like influenced my style," and it's like, really, I was playing some basic shit to just to fill in some gaps because we only have one guitar. But so we were like playing all these shows, and like like I put these big black pentagrams on my hands, just because, you got like the Christian hardcore kids, which like, I have no problem with anybody's beliefs, as long as they're not pushing them on me,
My
you
thoughts
know,
exactly.
it's like whatever you believe, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I don't care.
Yeah.
But it was more of just a joke and just for shock value. Like even on our records, we were like, we claimed to be like a satanic hardcore band and all this stuff. We had a quote from the Satanic Bible on the back of our first like, EP and all this stuff. And it was funny because like somebody like asked our singer, he's like, "Oh, so you guys are satanic?" And our singer's like, "Well, no, not really, but Hager is. He's totally satanic." I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm just a smart ass, like I'm a very sarcastic person." It's like, I mean, it's like if you take like 90% of the stuff that I post like on social media seriously, then those are the people that don't know me, because it's like I'm just very sarcastic. It's like, and I'll say anything for shock value. I'll say anything to try to make people laugh. Sometimes I'll try to push people's buttons, if I think they're being idiots. But anyways, so, and I also on my bass, I went out and I got those letters for, you put on your mailboxes.
Yeah.
I got 3 6s and I put them on my bass. I didn't even, and I wasn't even like really thinking about the fact that they're reflective. So anytime anybody like took a picture, like you've got this big glowing like 666, like it's like lit up.
Yeah.
And it was just so damn funny. And then it was fun, and we got signed to like a small label, and we put out an EP, which was actually called The Years of Fire, which we'll get back to that
Yeah.
later. And um and it went over really well, and then right before, like, we had all our songs written for our full length, and then I'd say about a month or so before we were going to go record that, it's just I was really getting bored with bass, and I wanted to go back to guitar. So I was like, I really want to play guitar, so let's find another bass player, and I'll play second guitar. And they're just very adamant about it. Was like, not it was nothing against me. It's just they wanted to be a one guitar band. I'm like, all right, well then, it's like no hard feelings, but I'm gonna have to step aside, because I want to play guitar, because that's my instrument,
Yeah.
And then,
Was that
you
around the
know,
time where you started Chimera? Because I know y'all Chimera formed in '98. How did you meet like Mark? Because I know you and him started the band.
yeah, well, Mark and Jim, actually, they had a band called Skip Line, and we met them, became friends with them, and Skip Line and Ascension like played like a lot of shows together, and we were like really good friends with them. And then Skip Line broke up, and Mark was, like I don't want to speak for Mark and like say like what was going on with him or anything like that, but like, he had some stuff going on, so he moved down to Cincinnati, which is like, southern Ohio. It's probably about 3 4 hours away maybe. And then I saw him. I was doing like this little hardcore band called Provoke. It was kind of your standard like tough guy hardcore band, and I'm definitely not a tough guy, but it was fun at the time. But it's not what I wanted to be doing. And I had Mark happened to be in town, and I saw him, and I talked to him. I'm like, dude, I'm like, do you want to start a band with me? Like, these are the influences, like everything from like, you know, Deftones, Fear Factory, Sepultura, stuff like that. I want to be more groove oriented. I don't, you know, I don't want to be a part of the hardcore scene anymore just because it was just so uptight, and it's like all these like just like tough guy hardcore dudes that like, if you weren't like if you showed up at a hardcore show and you had long hair, you were singled out, man. Like these kids would just pummel you for no reason, just because you were a you were a metal dude at a hardcore show. And it's like I didn't want to have anything to do with that. So it still took about it maybe about a close to a year for it to like come into fruition. Like me and Mark, he's like, like I had a drummer, and Mark knew a bass player, so we went and got a practice spot. We were jamming, and then one of my good friends was going to play lead guitar, but he was having a lot of medical issues.
Hmm.
He had a he had a brain tumor. It wasn't cancerous, but it just kept growing. So he was just like, I've got too much going on. I can't really do this right now. So our bass player is like, well, I know a guitar player if you want to try him out. So, and which ended up being Rob. And then he came down, and, we were just jamming, and just personality wise, just our playing, we just meshed instantly. And it's just like, dude, if you wanted, you're in the band. So, and then after that, we were we recorded like a demo that like none of us except for the drummer has, because he won't give up any copies of it, just because I mean he's still kind of bitter, but you know,
Damn.
yeah, I it, they weren't that great anyways, because I mean there was a reason we fired him, but it's just his drumming wasn't like what we needed. We needed a more technical drummer, somebody who could do like a lot of matching kicks, and like all that stuff, because like at the time, like I was heavily influenced by like like the style of like Fear Factory and stuff like that, with like a lot of the matching kicks to the guitar parts and stuff like that. And like just he could not do it. I mean he was just kind of more of a like a hardcore drummer, and personality wise he was a little bit hard to work with. So we had to let him go. And then Andals came in, and he set up his drums. He's like, all right, what do you want me to do? I'm like, how about you run through the demanufacture? So he fucking started playing just him, no music, flawlessly. And it's like, you're in, bro.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then from there we just started writing more stuff. And
Yeah.
just sorry, I keep hitting the cable. But
Yeah, you're good.
it's and then from there we just we decided it's like we're not going to become another one of these just little like DIY bands that just plays little shows and stuff like that. It's like we made a goal that we want to make this band as big as we possibly could. Like go as far as we can. We had our sights set on Roadrunner,
Yeah.
and it's like we we busted our asses, and we made every possible sacrifice you can make to make it happen. Like we drove from Cleveland to LA just to play a show at the Troubadour for no money, just in the hopes that like somebody important would be there to see us play.
Yeah.
And at that time like we had our EP, the This Present Darkness EP out. It was on a independent label called East Coast Empire. And so we were out there, and Dino was there from Fear Factory. Um, Karen Crisis, if you're familiar with the band Crisis at all.
I know the name, but Fear Factory is one of my favorites. I've had Dino on here before.
Yeah, like, and oh god, I had such a crush on Karen Crisis, and my ex got so mad when she saw that I got a picture with her. But so like, but she's like, you're a little close to her in that photo, aren't you? I'm like, dude, she's like this fucking tall. I had to bend down, and I'm like, it's like it really was just like a harmless, like, like, because I love the band too, and it was just, you're meeting, like, we were still like nobodies at this point, really. We're meeting these people that, like, we're influenced by, we looked up to, bands we loved and stuff like that. And then we saw Dino hanging out, like, outside the Troubadour, and like we walked up to him and gave him one of the CDs. We're like, hey man, check out our band. We figured, he'd be like, oh, thanks. And then we weren't looking, just throw it over the shoulder. And then, like, a couple weeks later, like, we got a call from our manager. He's like, dude, Dino absolutely loves your band, and he wants to produce your record. We're like, what? Are you kidding? And Chris Bacuza, our sampler, he was also, he was on a lot of street teams back in the day, which, like, I miss the days of street teams. It's like I really wish they'd bring them back, because it's that helped open so many doors for so many bands, and just like it made so much new music accessible to people who wouldn't have heard it otherwise.
Yeah.
But so he was on the Roadrunner Street team, and he knew the guys from Slipknot, and it was their first show playing Cleveland. And I don't know if you ever heard about their infamous first show playing Cleveland. They
Yeah,
were
they
getting
had that whole shit with them and Mushroom Head.
yeah, and yeah, that was an interesting evening.
Yeah.
And, like, and I don't blame the guys from Slipknot at all for doing
Yeah.
what they did.
I
I
know
would have
there's
did
like a
this.
clip online. I think there was like Mick actually one of their guitarists grabbed the mic. He's like, "Step up, pussy, step up, bitch."
Yeah,
Because
somebody
they're
threw
like throwing shit at them.
oh, dude, they're throwing fucking, like, D batteries and shit like that at them,
Jesus.
like all
Yeah.
kinds of
And I
stuff.
remember there's like a
They're
video of Corey Taylor talking about it.
Yeah, like, the funniest thing was, like, somebody threw a Slipknot or threw a Mushroom Head shirt up on stage, and Corey unzipped his fucking jumpsuit, bent over, pulled it down, wiped his ass with the Slipknot or with the Mushroom Head shirt, and threw it back in the crowd. I'm like, dude, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. So it's like
Wow.
I don't blame him. It's like if I went to a town and people were like pelting me with bullshit like that, I'd probably have the same reaction.
Yeah.
It's like it's like slip. They I don't know, but I don't want to get into all of that drama and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Another story
I've
for another time.
yeah, I've never had anything but great experiences with Slipknot. Um, and pretty much, like, the only person left in Mushroom Head from that era is the drummer. So but anyway, so Chris gave what I forget which member he gave our demo to, but they liked it, and they were doing a they were doing an interview at a like on a college radio station here, like in the Cleveland area. And Corey Corey stopped the interview, and he was just like, yeah, he's like, if you want to continue with this interview, he's like, I'm not saying anything else until you play a Chimaira song. And we're like, what? So Roadrunner's finally like, okay, well, maybe there's something to him. So it's like, and then, I mean, there's all kinds of, like, legal mumbo jumbo with the independent label that we were on, and it's just a long, boring. story. But finally, after like long, like process, we finally signed a Roadrunner, and we went out and we got to like we got to record Pass Out of Existence, and it's like, and it was a fun experience. You're living out in LA and for like two
I
months.
love this album, by the way. I think it's a
Oh,
very underrated album of Chimaira.
um,
Has that debut
I
charm.
I love I love the songs. I think we are a little naive and I think a little overboard, and I think it's a little bit overproduced.
Yeah.
I think, and it's not to like say anything bad about a producer, it's just he wanted it, he wanted a very sonic sound to the album. But at the same time, it's just I think how much he did took away from the lot that live aggression that we had at our shows, so but I mean overall it's like I love those songs. I'm proud of them, like I'm proud of everything that I've done in Chimaira. I'm proud of everything that they've done ever since I
Yeah.
left.
And Split, it's like one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, and
And this album's like so different from like all other albums because this was not to pigeonhole, but this was during the time of the new metal era. Yeah, were you like aware of all like the new metal bands at the time? Because for me, new metal had like a bunch of different like I guess waves. There was that first wave with like Korn and then Limp Bizkit and Deftones, and then around this time was like 2001 was like new metal was at its peak with like Disturbed, Papa Roach, and Linkin Park. So were you, did you feel like part of like that, or did you want to like get away from the new metal stuff?
um I don't think we were necessarily afraid of the new metal term, it's just I mean we were just us, and in a way, it's like we were a little naive, it's like we wanted to play what we wanted to play, but at the same time it's like we kind of wanted to make the label a little bit happy, like we did a cover of Fascination Street by The Cure for a tribute album that somebody was putting out, and Roadrunner heard it and they're like, well, we want you to record it. And at first we're like, no, we're not going to, and and they're like, well, we really want you to record it. We're like, well, as long as it's a B-side and you don't release it as a single, because we don't want that going on the radio and then people thinking that this is what we're all about, because it's not, it's like, because some of the songs on the album are a lot heavier than others, and it's like, and the funny part is like, Stephen Carpenter came in and was on one of the songs, and a lot of us are like, sweet, we're gonna get like a Deftones sounding song, and ended up being the heaviest song on the album, but because it's like because he had all these ideas and that just wouldn't fit with Deftones and he thought would fit with us, and he played us these riffs and we're like, holy shit, let's do it. So and then the thing that hurt that I think hurt the album was when we got signed and we were like recording and all that stuff. Like Roadrunner was like working out deals to merge with other labels and stuff like that. And then eventually Roadrunner went from being one of the biggest indie metal labels to actually being a major label. So, and they didn't want to put out any new releases until the uh, the deal was through. So our album kept getting pushed back. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, that kind of like hurt sales, because it's like people keep expecting it to come out, it keeps getting pushed back, and it's just like they're just sick of waiting and stuff like that. And then, I wouldn't say it did bad, but like it could have did a lot better, had things, gone a little bit differently on the business end of things, at least I think.
Yeah.
But and then the last week that we were out there recording, we were out there for 2 months, like my ex came out to visit for the last week, and then we went home. We were home for maybe 2 months, maybe a month and a half, 2 months before we went out on the road with Spine Shank.
Yeah.
And it was like our first tour as a Roadrunner band. It was like it was Spine Shank headlining, we were main support, and then it was El Nino. It was their first tour as a Roadrunner band, and then a band switched, which is a Cleveland band that we were friends with, and they just had an album come out on Interscope, and I feel horrible, but I forget what the other band's name was. But the week before we went out on a tour, like me and my ex, we got we no, it was about 2 weeks. We ended up getting married, and then a week before that tour, we found out she was pregnant. So I was like, "Fuck," And it's like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I couldn't be happier, because I love kids and I always wanted kids, and probably not the best timing, but still, I was really happy, And then while I was on the road, it's just like, we're a metal band. We're not gonna have huge radio hits like, people like Christina Aguilera and shit like that. All our money comes from touring, So I didn't want to have a baby at home growing up, not knowing his dad, because I'm only home like, with the exception of maybe writing, like a few days out of the year sporadically. So during that Taurus spine shank, I made the decision to quit, and I called Matt and let him know what was going on. I'm like, I need to quit. I just can't do this, but I don't want to leave these guys high and dry. I go, you're one of my best friends. You're like a brother to me, and you want this as bad as me. You've worked at this as hard as me, and you deserve it. You know, I go, and you're going to come into it respecting it. You're not going to have this idea of like, screw the old guy. I'm here now. Like, he's grateful for the opportunity that he was given. So and I brought that up to them, and then when we got home, they jammed with them, and they're like, "You're in," So within, I don't know, it's like within a month, they were back out on the road with him, and then like I did some jamming and stuff like that. Nothing serious. Like maybe just like weekend warrior type stuff, and then like now, like it was probably about 2005. I started Years of Fire.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to the name Years of Fire, like I I done I had done another band before that. It was called Shinoa, which happens to be like uh my stepdaughter's middle name, and it's like I thought it sounded cool and it had personal meaning, and it was just a completely different sound for me, like it was more radio friendly type stuff, and me and the singer wanted to go like in a little bit heavier direction. The other guitar player and the drummer wanted to go in more of an experimental, like kind of Coheed, Cambria type direction, and that's just not me. It's not to say that that's not talented music. It's just not what I want to play. So I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna do this. It's like I'm going back to metal. So it's like I've come full circle. So I figured, since you know to pay homage to where it all started for me, like my main release that was not a demo was the Ascension Years of Fire EP. So coming back full circle to pay homage to that, I named the band Years of Fire. So we played, like, and we put out some stuff. We had a full length that we recorded. We will some demos and stuff like that too. And then we recorded a full length for this label Thorpe Records that wanted to sign us, and dude, like they sent us like a box of CDs, and then it was like a week before the actual release date was supposed to come out, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to, not do the label anymore. I can't afford it. I'm going bankrupt." I'm
Ew.
like,
Worst timing.
oh, yeah, awesome. So, and then, so this other guy who I don't know, like where he came into some money somehow, he wants to start his own label. He bought the rights to it, which he basically just paid. Thorpe just sold it to him for the cost of the recording. And so he's going around, trying to get all these like this distribution and stuff like that for his label. I don't even remember what the name of his label was. But, of course, he's throwing my name around. He's like, yeah, we got Jason Hager from Chimaira's new band on the label, and blah, blah, blah. And Chimaira this, Chimaira that, Chimaira. And, like, he's like using my name to like further his to try to get himself some contacts. But, like, he's not doing anything for us. Like, the only thing he did for us was he got us on the Milwaukee Metal Fest, which was the biggest, pardon my language, clusterfuck of a show I've ever played in my life. Like,
Damn.
but like the one good thing that came out of it, was like Skin Lab was on that show too. Like, and nicest guys in the world, and you know, and I'd been a fan of them, and then Steve's like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm a huge fan of you," blah blah blah. And so I'm like, "What, me? Why are you a fan of me?" It's like I'm just some dork, but so we just through frustration and stuff like that, like, members came and gone, and then we just self-released an EP, like I used my tax return to pay for the recording, the pressing, and all that stuff, and then it's just, I don't know, like things were getting kind of frustrating. We just really needed a break, so we took a break for a while, and then I went on, it's like I've been wanting to playing get back into playing and writing for a while, like I hadn't even like picked up my guitar in like 10 years, you know, even to like move it somewhere. It was in a corner, it just sat for like 10 years.
Yeah, just
But like,
gathering dust.
yeah. So, and then I went on Rob Arnold's YouTube channel, first to do the interview with him, and then I went back on to do a playthrough of the song Sphere, and that it really started to light the spark for me even more, then it's like all right, I've been wanting to do this. This is the fire under my ass. But even then, it was still like a little like, I was kind of, dragging ass a little bit. And then they did the 20-year anniversary for Impossibility of Reason. And the second night, they had me come up and do uh, play three of the older songs with them, like one off of Present Darkness and two off of Pass Out of Existence. And like that was pretty much it, like just standing on stage in front of all those people. It's like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like why am I not doing this? It's like, I mean, granted, I'm a lot older and achier than I was to, like back then, but I mean, that was the first time in like 22 years that I stood on stage and played with those guys. And it was like the greatest feeling ever, being back on stage with like my brothers that, you know, went through hell and back to like make our dreams happen. So I decided at that point, it's like, all right, like I need to do this. I gotta do something, like whether it's a brand new project or something, and then I'm like thinking about it, it's like I've already done like started new bands, over and over again. It's like I'm not gonna do that. It's like if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna give you I'm getting Years of Fire back together, and we're gonna give it the shot that I don't think that it got, that it deserved. Now I'm not trying to be, egotistical or cocky or anything like that, but it's like I think we had some great songs, and I don't think that they got, the chance to get out there to the people. And so we got the there were several like different like players in Years of Fire over the years, but everybody in the band now were in the band before, like when we recorded our EP, with the exception of the bass player. He's just, he's got a lot going on right now. He's got two like small children and all this stuff, and he's just like, I'd love to do it, but I just really can't. So the most obvious choice for me was I went to my son, who's 21 now, which really makes me feel fucking old.
Wow.
Who's, I mean, he played in jazz band and all that stuff in high school. He got a scholarship for music and stuff like that. Even though, I mean, like college just wasn't for him. But so I mean, he's an amazing musician. He's a great guitar player. He's an amazing bass player. So I was like, "Do you want to play bass?" And he's like, honestly, he's like, if Ben wasn't able to do it, he's like, I was hoping you were gonna ask me. So yeah, and it's funny because he's been a part, of the Years of Fire journey ever since he was like, coming to shows at 3 years old, standing on the side of the stage with his little isolation headphones on, just watching his dad rock out. And he'd come to practices, he'd be at the studio and all that stuff. So I mean, like Years of Fire has been a big part of his life ever since he was like really little. So now he's a part of it. So it's really cool. It's cool to be able to do what I love with the person that I love the most. And it's like not a lot of people get to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just, so I mean, right now we're working on a lot of new material. It's still going to be Years of Fire. I mean, but it's going to be heavier, like a little more groove to it, just so just people could, you know, I don't know, bob their head for the lack of a better word, and it's I don't want it to be like a constant a constant battle of like two guitar players trying to show off on who can like
Mm.
throw as many notes
Just keep
in
it
there
like perfectly
as
balanced.
possible. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just make it only as flashy as it needs to be. It's just like I think there's there's a lot of bands out there that it's just like like a million notes a second, and it's like yeah, that's talented, and it's like I couldn't do that, but it's like what is that really doing for the song other than like showing that like hey, look at me, you know it's like I want stuff that's gonna stick in people's heads, stuff that they just they're gonna be walking around like, God, I can't get this damn song out of my head, you know, like stuff like that. So, we've got our goals, and it's like we want to push this as far as we can, and it's like we're gonna do what it takes to do that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
because
totally. We
like both like all of our previous material, like our EP, the self, the one that we put out ourselves, the Masochist EP, the Visceral Departure full length, and then we even have a single, which is like kind of like a almost like an old school kind of how like Meshuggah used to do like those industrial remixes of their songs, of one of our songs, like pretty much on every streaming service out there. So everybody can go out there and hear all the stuff that we've already done. And you'll hear a bunch of those songs in our set, but you're also going to hear like a lot of new stuff too once we start playing out. Because like it's a new chapter for us. And we don't want to forget where we came from as far musically, but at the same time, it's like we want to focus on the future of the band and the direction that we want to go, and just the mentality of it all, because we're a little bit, we're all older, we're a lot more mature, we're taking it a lot more seriously,
yeah.
so, and we're having a lot of fun doing it,
Yeah.
it's great to be back in a room, like just jamming with these guys, it's like that I didn't think was ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And then to have my son be one of them is an unreal bonus. So like I'm very excited for the future of this band. So, and I can't wait for people to hear, you know, the new stuff that that we record and put out there.
Yeah. Is there like a tentative release date for like the new music?
Um, we're not like trying to rush it. Like right now we're working on some stuff. Like the goal is to, like, as soon as, we have like a few of the songs polished to the point where we're happy with them, go in and record them. We want to do a video, because like these days video is very important, like it's a huge thing, like on YouTube, like everything about the music industry is like it's constantly evolving, so YouTube's like a huge thing, and social media and music videos are a huge thing too, so we're going to do that, and then from that point, you know start playing out, and try to get out on the road as much as we can, and just get our music out there,
Yeah.
and just brutalize some audiences,
Oh yeah. So thank you, Jason, for this conversation. It was great to be able to hear your musical history. Is there just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close this out?
um well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on your show, and I would just like to say, thank you to all the fans that, like, to this day still, tell me how much, like, you know I've inspired them, and hopefully I continue to inspire them. And, you know, hopefully, they like the stuff that, I'm doing now, and and it's just, it's like, if you want to do it, man, just do it. It's hard work. You're gonna, nothing comes easy, and it's, like nothing's gonna be handed to you. You're probably gonna get turned down more than you're gonna get accepted, and you got to have really thick skin. That's the biggest thing. But if you want to make it happen, you're gonna find a way to do it, and it's just, don't give up. If it's truly in your heart to make music a living, then you're gonna find a way to do it. Like, and you're not gonna let anybody stand in your way, and you shouldn't. So
Yeah.
so that's my advice to everybody out there. So
Awesome.
just go for it, man. Just don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. And if anybody tries to like knock you down, just get back up, brush it off, and just keep moving forward.
Hell yeah. So,
So
so yeah. So everybody, Jason Hager from Years of Fire. See you next time.